This is Elise with an update on the ongoing Inessa Armand translation project. We now have 37 of the 38 extant essays and speeches by Inessa Armand translated into English for the first time, and we are just short of the halfway mark on the fundraising progress as well. This enrichment of the English language Marxist canon has only been possible with your support, and it's been a real lifeline for me. So anyone who would like to support this project can find links in the description for how to do so, and everybody who has already supported it has my sincerest thanks. Perfect. Okay, 3 of 4.
El hospital.
還元一級の先というのは本当に誰も知らない字ばっかりでしょうね。私は
Okay, we've leveled up and it is time to pick another language. Morfar är tröttare än vanligt. Maten är färdig. And let's see what we're doing when we get back. Greek. We're doing Greek when we get back. Fun fact. Turkish. Hello, Shakespeare. How you doing? Fun fact, in Spanish, the word for bishop in chess is alfil. And that actually comes from Arabic. Fil. The same word fil as this. Meaning elephant, because the bishop traditionally was to represent elephant units somehow. Similarly, in Russian, the word for bishop is skor, and that also means elephant. Okay. This is Elise with an update on the ongoing Inessa Armand translation project. We now have 37 of the 38 extant essays and speeches by Inessa Armand translated into English for the first time, and we are just short of the halfway mark on the fundraising progress as well. This enrichment of the English language Marxist canon has only been possible with your support, and it's been a real lifeline for me. So anyone who would like to support this project can find links in the description for how to do so, and everybody who has already supported it has my sincerest thanks.
Ça, c'est ça, que c'est ça, non ça, c'est ça. Sol chi sa che nulla sa, ne sa più di chi ne sa. Ecco.
Bonjour et bienvenue à Hyper Polyglotting avec Élise. Moi c'est Élise, traductrice, éditrice et écrivain avec 20 ans de travail. Et ça c'est la transmission en direct ou en jeu des jeux, surtout GeoGuessr en dernier temps. Et parle des langues, de la linguistique, de l'acquisition des langues.
10-159. Haven't made a huge dent in it, but we're getting there. Okay, gonna do some Chinese now. Night. Night. Come on. Yen. Yo. 5. Ducks are drinking wine. Bangba, okay, Bangbas is duck. Okay, I have now leveled up. Let's see what the XP situation is now. 10,340 out of 12,500. And as always, viewers can choose my next language for me just with a follow and a $5 to my Patreon.
Sotto le frasche del capanno 4 gatti grossi stanno. Sotto 4 grossi sassi, 4 grossi e grassi gatti. Un généreux déjeuner régénéré des généraux dégénérés. Un généreux déjeuner régénéré des généraux dégénérés. Facile. Sì, sì, ecco, la gente, è la cosa che mi dice la gente, sempre che scoprisce che quante lingue parlo, io sempre avevo l'impressione, diciamo, di che non era così, non era tan così, ma poi, dopo di aver visto qualche poliglota in YouTube, una delle cose che avevo scoperte era giustamente che la metodologia usata da quella gente poliglota che non avevo mai conosciuta prima, era più o meno la stessa metodologia che usavo io. I buy a computer or what? And yeah, and here's another example. I like to point these out. For this word for or sounds vaguely like Hogun and the Hok in Hogun in Korean or Waku in Japanese, and that appears it is the exact same kind of character.
Okay, let me see.
Un chasseur sachant chasser, ses chasser sont son chien de chasse.
Der dicke Dach.
Okay, der dicke Dachdecker deckt dir dein Dach, drum dank dem dicken Dachdecker, dass der dicke Dachdecker dir dein Dach deckt. Hola y bienvenidos al directo de Hyperpolyglotting with Elise. Yo soy Elisa, traductora, escritora y editora y comunicadora social con más de 20 idiomas de trabajo. Y aquí vamos a estar jugando videojuegos, sobre todo GeoGuessr, y hablando de idioma, la mejor forma de aprenderlo y caleta más. Zwei Zwetschgenzweigen zwitscherten zwei tschechische Schwalben. Tres tristes tigres tragaban trigo en un trigal en tres tristes trastos. Oh, I see. This is Diche Ishai Fui, which means do you want food? But yeah, are you hungry? That's also funny. How are the boys? Cocine da boy. Posso Milao. Pote. Buenese. Proteine. Protopolo. In the designated chicken eating area, obviously. Okay, still 3 times I have to defeat him. And I don't have a whole lot of health left.
This is Elise with an update on the ongoing Inessa Armand translation project. We now have 37 of the 38 extant essays and speeches by Inessa Armand translated into English for the first time. And we are just short of the halfway mark on the fundraising progress as well. This enrichment of the English language Marxist canon has only been possible with your support, and it's been a real lifeline for me. So anyone who would like to support this project can find links in the description for how to do so, and everybody who has already supported it has my sincerest thanks.
Messier. Livre. Liwe, livre.
Paks.
Mustan kissan paksut posket.
Matjeje.
Ja.
Ja. Si. Isopi. Matěje. Proč? Víte. Počkej. A. Si. Track 6.
Aspri Petra xes aspri apton ilio xex asproteri. Aspri Petra xes aspri apton ilio xes asproteri.
En coginio panas.
Oh boy.
Ferrad verda ferda vedri.
Jacob. Hefed. 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 Haq. 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 Саша
Саша по шоссе несла сушку на счастье и сосала сушку. Саша по шоссе несла сушку на счастье и сосала сушку.
Mwalimu.
Juma ni mwalimu mke.
Ирак чимав чипах чемп чавю ченчи чини. Чирак чимав чипа да, чирак чимав чипцах чемп чавю ченчи чини. Бакакит альшит. Хикрин. Бакакит альши хикрин. Hello, and welcome to Hyperpolyglotting with Elise. I'm Elise, translator, writer, and editor with 20 working languages, and this is the channel and the stream where we're going to play some GeoGuessr, and we're going to look at some of the best and maybe not so best of language learning YouTube. So let's get stuck in. Looks like my audio is working properly, which is nice to hear, because we've had some problems with that in the past couple of streams. How's everybody doing, chat? As I try to get the windows where I need them. Okay, gonna do another daily challenge to get started. Okay, speed limit 15 when flashing. Okay, we are definitely in the US. Someplace with mountains nearby. And otherwise rather dry. Okay, that makes me feel like we're probably someplace out west. Okay, that's not particularly useful. Grass Valley. Okay, that doesn't mean anything to me. Oh my. Buffer has fallen off of my microphone. Let's get that fixed before something annoying happens. Right. Okay. So we're in some place called Grass Valley, apparently, and it's in the US. And it's someplace quite dry. Not seeing oil rigs, so probably not Texas.
Not an informative semi. Nevada. We're in Nevada. We're on Nevada, Route 294. Don't think I've ever seen a Nevada state route sign before. Neat. Hello, Badger. How you doing? $208. 376. $278. What was it? $294 we're after? Yeah, Nevada 294. Well, it's always very nice when these state route signs... Oh, hell. That's right, we're on a time control. Oh, cool. Okay, fuck that one up. Forgot that there was a time control. Okay, this feels... possibly Brazilian someplace, is my immediate guess. No, it is São Tomé and Príncipe. Okay, this is not my best round of GeoGuessr Daily Challenge. Okay, someplace probably Arctic, judging from this construction. Yield sign does not say anything. Okay, so Canada's a possibility. Could be up in Nunavut. Let's see. No. I wasn't trying to go back there. I was trying to go into town. Wherever town is. This may just be the entirety of it. Yeah, this is not the best round of GeoGuessr Daily Challenge I've ever done. Yeah, this definitely feels like Nunavut. No, it was Greenland. It was Asiat. Okay, wow, this is officially my absolute all-time worst GeoGuessr score. I'm on round 4 and my score is 2401. That is impressive. That is, like, actually impressive in its badness. Okay, I picked up a few there. At least I got the country right. Okay, round 5 of 5. Okay, this could be Britain, this could be France, this could be Ireland so far. Could be a bunch of places, really. Hoping to find a sign or something I can look at. You are witnessing the absolute worst score I have ever had on any iteration of GeoGuessr. It is actually impressive how badly I have done. ABF for Anarchist Book Fair, is that? Come on, give me something here. Something that at least narrows it down to a language that they're speaking or something. So far, I mean, this could also be South America, but this could be Italy. I don't know, it feels potentially Italian. Oh, it's been a while since I've been to a book fair. Oh, fucking hell. It was Turkey. 1 point. I got 1 point. Now I know what you have to do in order to get 1 point. Neat. A breakdown. That is a pretty good description. Okay. I completely fucked up. I mean, the one that I would have done reasonably well on was the Nevada one. And I'd forgotten all about the fact that there was a time control, so I didn't give an answer. Okay, we're gonna play World and try to wash that taste out of our mouths. Whoa, I don't think I've ever gotten 1 point before. Willkommen am EVO-Strand. Offenbach. Wir sind in Offenbach. Okay. Wo genau liegt Offenbach nochmal? Ah ja, in der Nähe von Frankfurt. Irgendwo hier in der Gegend. 49.89. Not bad. 1 point. Okay, we've got a bus stop, and the bus stop says bus stop, so we are someplace English speaking. Lancaster Road, Ascot. Okay, that all feels rather Anglo. Okay, yeah, this is definitely not Britain. Oh, we've got a blurry bus. I mean, Australia sounds like a possibility. I mean, judging from the palm trees and stuff. Yeah, no, not with those speed limit signs. And everyone's driving on the left. Oh, we got a tradie van here. Maybe that'll tell us something. Tradie vans are very handy because they generally tell us where they're located, except this one just gives a phone number. Albion Exchange, 3 Oriole Road, Clayfield. Okay, none of this is actually immediately jumping out to me as location specific, which tells me it's probably not Melbourne, probably not Sydney, probably not in Victoria. Wait, never heard of a Puma station. Yeah, okay, we are in Australia. I was beginning to think maybe we were actually in, I don't know, NZ or South Africa or someplace. It doesn't really look like South Africa. Jim's Mowing. Yeah, no, we're definitely in Australia. Studio Musculoskeletal. Dry Needling. Have you compared the pair? An industry super fund. A super fund in Australia is not the same thing as super fund in the US. A super fund in Australia is a private pension fund, short for superannuation. It does not refer to a place that's so badly polluted that there's some sort of a remediation plan. Water ingress specialists. Okay, where the hell is Clayfield, though? I have no idea. I mean, this does not feel like Victoria, really. It's way too sunny. Caboolture, that is familiar. Is this Queensland, maybe? Is Clayfield maybe in Brizzy? Let's have a punt. I feel like I've heard of Caboolture. Maruka, Toowong, Gumdale, Capolabia. Oh, Capolaba. Not Capolabia. Oh, that's handy. Mind if I ask which citizenships? Let's see, Penrith, Chatswood, Huntsville, Hurstville, Cronulla. Okay, let's go. Wow, I didn't know Newcastle in New South Wales has a Toronto, a Swansea, and a Cardiff. Neat. Oh, wow. That's handy. I mean, could this be over by Perth? Rockingham, Port Kennedy, Jarrahdale. Lots of place names ending in up. Like, if you could we at least get a state name someplace? Albion Manor. God, where the fuck is Caboolture again? I know I've heard that place name. I'm just collecting him. Frodsham. Brisbane Euro Specialist. Okay, we are in Brizzy. Chermside, Mount Nebo, Bulimba, Sunnybank, Jindalee, Oxley, St. Lucia, Toowong, Gumdale, Thornside, Capilabia, Slacks Creek, Regents Park, Wolfdean, Redland Bay, Lytton, Port of Brisbane, Nunda, Chermside, Strathpine. Coopers Plain, Salisbury, Annerley, Carindale, New Farm, Fortitude Valley. Westlake, Jindalee, Indooroopilly. Fitzgibbon, Sandgate. Well, okay, we know it is someplace near Brizzy. Oh, Caboolture, here we are. And Redcliffe. Okay, so where's Clayfield, though? Burpengary. I knew I was in Queensland. $4,900. Not too bad. Ok, Di Carmine, Centro Camerette. Ci troviamo in Italia. Okay, we are someplace in Italy. Comune di Fontenuova. Fontenuova non mi dice nulla. Mai sentito nominare. Stop. kind of a neat sign. I like that layout. That's a neat design. No, goddammit. No, I was not guessing that. I was actually trying to steer. Chanella. Chanella. Okay, it's coastal, it looks like. And very sunny. Arrosticini. Okay. Get out of Queensland. Fonte Nuova. I don't know, possibly someplace... Yeah, there's a lot of coast in Italy. So... Passaggio pedonale rialzato a Fonte Nuova. Ma dove cazzo si trova Fonte Nuova? Abiti usati. Comune di Fonte Nuova. Solo dice Fonte Nuova, cazzo. Già so che si tratta di Fonte Nuova. Ah. Fermata richiesta. I need at least to have some idea what the province is or a major city that's nearby. That would help. That would work. Tabaccheria Rosari. Donna moderna, parrucchieri, igloo di sapore, del sapore, domus, immobiliare, abiti da lavoro, Cotral. Cotral potrebbe essere compagnia di trasporto di Lazio, ma non lo conosco. The public transport system is called Cotral. And I've never heard of it, but I'm thinking maybe that's Compagnia di Trasporto di Lazio, Lazio being the province that contains Rome. But that does not narrow it down too well. Finocchio, Bisognano, Subiaco, Affile, Vicovaro, Cineto Romano. We're looking for Fonte Nuova. Hey, Hogsnout. Well, certainly all roads in Lazio do. Okay, let's see. Noi con Salvini, vaffanculo. Comune di Fontenuova, città metropolitana di Roma capitale. Okay, I was not wrong. It's not near Rome. Well, I was kind of wrong. It's not near Rome, it's in Rome. Monteverde, Portuense, Appio Latino, Torpignattara, Pietralata, Trieste, Tuffello. Regola. Fonte Meravigliosa. Miraculous Fountain. Fonte Laurentina. Lots of fountains. Or springs as well. Isola Sacra. Focene. Okay, so what we know is it's someplace around Rome. In or around. Thing is, Rome is kind of big. Trastevere. Oh, Trastevere is a hell of a place to spend an evening. That place is great. I mean, just amazing restaurants. There's this cocktail bar with fascinating photography on the wall. I like Trastevere. Malagrotta, Castel di Guido, Labaro, Muricana, Prato la Corte. Okay. Well, someplace around Rome, we'll say. Someplace Romish. Ah, I was looking on the wrong side of Rome. 49, still not bad. 4 of 5. Wayne Williams Bikeway. Looks like the US. Once again, someplace mountainous. Speed limit 45. Yeah, US, definitely. There are palm trees and mountains. Let's see what these... Well, those aren't really mountains. Okay, I'm thinking this is someplace between San Luis Obispo and LA. This feels like California. I haven't seen much of California. I mean, I haven't spent a lot of time in California, in much of it other than LA. But I did take the train from Seattle all the way down to LA, and so I got a pretty good feel for the topography. And the weird thing about the topography of California is that it's like upside down Chile. Like in Chile, you start in the north with an extremely arid desert, the most arid desert in the world, the Atacama. And then you eventually get to this sort of partially green bit with chaparral and palm trees, and it looks like the area around LA, basically. Except drier. And then you go further south and you end up in the forests and the mountains and stuff like that. And in California, it's the exact opposite. You start in the north with the forests and the mountains and stuff. Then you go into, yep, California Conservation Corps. We are indeed in Cali. Okay. That being the case, I think I have a vague idea of which part of California we're in. And I think I wouldn't be surprised if we were somewhat north of LA. But not very far north. Like, probably someplace in here between SLO and Santa Barbara. Got a route number or something? This feels like this should have like a US highway number or route number or something. Okay. Well, have a good chat to your cousin then. I'll be here for a little while yet. Someplace in... Okay, we're going west, apparently. West-northwest. There's only so much west available in California. A monastery. I don't see too many of those. Okay, this looks like it's taking me into some town or other. Well, it did for a second. Now it looks like it's taking me out of some town or another. But we're heading east anyway. Come on. Gotta have something more than this. Like, how do we not have a sign saying what town we're headed to or something. Community Baptist Church. So it's a Baptist church someplace in Community. Oh, cool. Good idea. What novel was it? And as I said, you might find that the narration is a bit much for you at first. So focus on the dialogue at first. Neat font on this. Neat font on these street signs. Ah, I'm not familiar with it. Oh, okay. We're someplace near... Oh, I was right. Near SLO in Santa Barbara. Is this still... Is this SLO? SLOtransit.org. Yeah, we're in SLO. $49.84. Well, that train ride down nearly the entire length of California certainly helped for something. Got some nice pictures on it too. Okay, some place with scuffed, well, I mean, I don't know if you'd call this scuffed infrastructure. That's basically no infrastructure. These roads basically don't exist. It's interesting because the houses seem to be in reasonably good shape. Usually scuffed infrastructure goes hand in hand with scuffed housing. Parikmacherskaya. Okay, we are in Ukraine, I'm pretty sure. Wait, no. Let me look at that again. No, Parikmacherskaya. Okay, no, we're in Russia. We're someplace in Russia. Законная реализация материнского капитала. Yeah. Магнит. Автодетали. Где-то будет тоже шиномонтаж. Автомойка. Шасси авиаторов. Бетон от производителя. Ситимобил. Работа в такси. So we are in Anytown, Russia, basically. Автозапчасти. One thing about, like, your exurban and suburban areas in your, like, smaller towns in Russia is that everything, like, auto parts related businesses are massively overrepresented. There's, there's some place that'll change your tires for you. There's auto parts. It's like everything is automotive related. Ah, Ulica Ayechina. Okay, a chess-related street name. Ulica Krasnoflotskaya, the Red Fleet. Продольная, прием металлолома, scrap metal. Улица Лермонтова. Lermontov, author of one of my favorite novels. Oh, another автозапчасти, more spare auto parts. Фундаментные работы. Шиномонтаж. Я что сказала? Всегда в российском городе, в российской пригородке есть, по крайней мере, один шиномонтаж. There's always a шиномонтаж. Шиномонтаж! There we go, there's another one. Шиномонтаж everywhere. Наружная реклама. Распродажа. Красная звезда. Нижегороде. Is this Nizhny Novgorod? I mean, this is actually more urban than it looked initially. Магазин строительных и отделочных материалов. Улица маршала Еременко. KFC. Crap fucking chicken. Макфест. Цены ниже в приложении Макдоналдс. Dialine. Everything for fishing and outdoor activities. Leisure activities. Okay. Interesting. Aquaphor is like a water filtration system in Russia as opposed to ointment. Тэквондо для всех. Volgogradskaya Oblast. Okay, we got it. We're someplace near Volgograd. It reminds me of an old Soviet joke from not long after Khrushchev took over from Stalin, when they announced the name change of Stalingrad to Volgograd, and a telegram came in to the local council saying, "I approve, signed, Comrade Volgin." Улица Менделеева. Yeah, we're in Volgograd. Volgograd. $49.98, not bad. 24,820. I was only 155 points short of my top score of all time. Okay, let's do another. Okay, my immediate feeling is we're in the US or Canada. Uninformative bin. Property guys. Okay, that is a North American, a US and Canadian phone number format. The infrastructure looks bad enough to be the US. Oh no, we are in Canada. Stop arrêt. Okay, we are probably in the Maritimes then. Probably like New Brunswick or something like that. Is in Quebec, it just says arrêt. In the rest of the country, it says just stop. So I would not be surprised if we are in NB. Yeah, the street names also tell me we are probably in NB and not Quebec. Yeah, Canadian flag. Canada Post. Yeah. What's it called? Plaster Rock. Okay. Pretty sure this is New Brunswick. Plaster Rock, there it is. Right in the straight vertical bit, right by the straight vertical bit of Maine. $49.99, not a bad start. Okay. We're in India. And that was Devanagari. Statistically, I'm going to say we are probably someplace in Delhi. With someplace with very narrow streets in Delhi. Just because when it's in Hindi, MCD में go Oops. अमूल दूध पीता है India. Okay, yeah, we Amul Dud Pita hai India. India is drinking Amul milk. Got it. Yeah. Yeah, when it's Hindi, it's basically always Delhi. Eleazar Rubio, lo de atención ciudadana, materiales para construcción Rupit y pesa pintura. Estamos entonces en un país de habla hispana y seguramente no nos encontramos en España. Vulcanizadora, siempre, bueno. Ciudad de México. Okay. That simplifies things. Estamos, ok, módulo legislativo de atención y quejas ciudadanas. Okay, so we are in Mexico City. That much we've narrowed down, but Mexico City is bloody huge. Let's see if we can do a little bit better than that. Somehow in Latin America, I've never seen these any other place. They have all these vulcanizing shops. And I've never seen vulcanizing offered anywhere else, and I've always tried to figure out is like why is vulcanizing a thing there and not anywhere else? As far as I can tell. Maybe it's a place in places I haven't been. Maybe Bate y empanada real de Cuautepec. San Agustín. Okay, well, Cuautepec. Parece que Cuautepec se llama la comuna o como El distrito, ¿cómo se llama la weá? En México. Narvarte Poniente, Bosque de Aragón, La Condesa. Bueno, estamos en todo caso en CDMX. Y no en el Estado de México. Cuautepec, Moctezuma, Centro, Tlatelolco. Martín Carrera, Atzacoalco. Gertrudis Sánchez, Romero Rubio, Peñón de Lobaño. Tránsito, Doctores, Colonia Buenos Aires, Militar Marte, Portal, Atoyac, Coyoacán, Platero, Chimalistac, Copilco. Que bueno. Pedregal de Carrasco. Chucha, weón. Es que hay harto. Okay. $49.27. Okay, and now I'm going to take a little bio break, and then I will be back.
Hi, and welcome to Hyperpolyglotting with Elise. I am Elise, translator, editor, and writer with 20 working languages, and this is where we talk about languages and language learning and all sorts of other stuff, and we play games.
This is Elise with an update on the ongoing Inessa Armand translation project. We now have 37 of the 38 extant essays and speeches by Inessa Armand translated into English for the first time. And we are just short of the halfway mark on the fundraising progress as well. This enrichment of the English language Marxist canon has only been possible with your support, and it's been a real lifeline for me. So anyone who would like to support this project can find links in the description for how to do so, and everybody who has already supported it has my sincerest thanks.
Perfect. Okay, 3 of 4.
El hospital es
還元一級の先というのは本当に誰も知らない字ばっかりでしょうね。私は
Okay, we've leveled up, and it is time to pick another language.
Morfar är tröttare än vanligt. Maten är färdig. And let's see what we're doing when we get back. Greek. We're doing Greek when we get back. Ben neredeyse her gün okula giderim. Fun fact. Turkish. Hello, Shakespeare. How you doing? Fun fact, in Spanish, the word for bishop in chess is alfil. And that actually comes from Arabic. Fil. The same word fil as this. Meaning elephant, because the bishop traditionally was to represent elephant units. somehow. Similarly, in Russian, the word for bishop is sword, and that also means elephant.
This is Elise with an update on the ongoing Inessa Armand translation project. We now have 37 of the 38 extant essays and speeches by Inessa Armand translated into English for the first time. And we are just short of the halfway mark on the fundraising progress as well. This enrichment of the English language Marxist canon has only been possible with your support, and it's been a real lifeline for me. So anyone who would like to support this project can find links in the description for how to do so, and everybody who has already supported it has my sincerest thanks.
Ça, ça, c'est ça, ça, che c'est ça, non ça, c'est ça. Sol chi sa che nulla sa, ne sa più di chi ne sa. Ecco.
Bonjour et bienvenue à Hyper Polyglotting avec Élise. Moi, c'est Élise, traductrice, éditrice et écrivain avec 20 ans de travail. Et ça, c'est la transmission en direct ou en jeu des jeux, surtout GeoGuessr en dernier temps. Et parle des langues, de la linguistique, de l'acquisition des langues. 10:159. Haven't made a huge dent in it, but we're getting there. Okay, gonna do some Chinese now. Nej. Nej. Come on. Igen. Jo. 5. Ducks are drinking wine. Barbaz, okay, Barbaz is duck. Okay, I have now leveled up. Let's see what the XP situation is now. 10,340 out of 12,500. And as always, viewers can choose my next language for me just with a follow and a $5 to my Patreon.
Sotto le frasche del capanno 4 gatti grossi stanno. Sotto 4 grossi sassi, 4 grossi e grassi gatti. Un généreux déjeuner régénéré des généraux dégénérés. Un généreux déjeuner régénéré des généraux dégénérés. Facile. Sì, ecco, la gente... è la cosa che mi dice la gente, sempre che scoprisce che quante lingue parlo. Io sempre avevo l'impressione, diciamo, di che non era così, non era tan così, ma poi dopo di aver visto qualche poliglota in YouTube, una delle cose che avevo scoperte.
And I'm back. Let's see, okay, this feels... Latvian, I think. I think we are actually... This is like the first time, I think, they've put us in an urban or at least suburban area of the Baltics. Pakruojis. Jovarai. I was about to say it looked kind of German. Polizia. Skoni Skurio Pasilgote. I've always been kind of curious about the Baltic Indo-European languages, just because they are the basically of the European Indo-European languages, they are the closest somehow to Sanskrit. Okay. I mean, this seems to be a fairly large city, just in the sense that, I mean, that cop shop was huge. Hey, Atta, how you doing? We're someplace in Latvia. Or possibly Lithuania. Yeah, Lithuania, more likely, actually. HBU? Oh, how about you? Oh, not bad, not bad. You, earlier, unless you were just being quiet in chat, you missed me getting the worst score I have ever had on GeoGuessr. Like, the absolute worst score I've ever had. It actually took a certain amount of skill to manage it. Okay, we are someplace in Lithuania is now my guess. I had forgotten that the dot over the E thing, that is a Lithuanian and not Latvian thing. Yeah. Sorry. I actually had 2 rounds where I only got 1 point. As I was on the opposite side of the world from the place I needed to be. Oh, interesting. Despite being an EU place, they use the Russian-style stop signs, which I have to say are really hard to see. Okay, I'm gonna say someplace. Just a random guess. 4562, not bad. Okay, someplace with snow. And we're in golden hour, which is nice. You get everything is a little bit prettier in golden hour. All that warm light. So we're someplace snowy, and now it's dark. And now it's kind of light again. Now it's dark. And so far, we have not had a single sign. Yes, it's a very polite request. It's so polite you could easily overlook it. Reduce speed now. Okay. That tells me we're probably in Britain. I mean, the font is also British. I wouldn't have guessed that. Mill of Brotherfield. Okay, so we are some small townical place in Britain. With any luck at all, we will get the number of an A road or a B road, or maybe even an M. West Hill, Wester Ord. Countess Wells. Like, okay, so far absolutely nothing is ringing a bell. Mid-Ord. Ord. Okay. Could this be like in the Scottish Highlands, maybe? I mean, it's definitely not Wales. We can say that because the signs aren't bilingual. But Scottish Highlands doesn't sound right either because the signs aren't bilingual. You get into the Highlands, you're more likely to see some Gaelic signage. Yeah. Yeah, okay. On the other hand, it's snowy. Oh, here we go. Kirkton of Skene. Yeah, okay, I thought we were probably in Scotland. B9. B979. Yeah, I was right. We're in the Highlands. It's B9024, A97. Okay. A97 is good because the A97 will originate 979, the roads A979 and B979. So we know it's somewhere around here. Cruchy. The Baron of Fork. Bogney Castle. 9001. Yonder Bogney. That's a great name. Carroll's Cattery, Hilbury, Newton of Haddo. That street just doesn't have a fucking name. One of the very handy things about British signage, British street names, I mean street numbers, route numbers, is they are actually quite predictable. Duff House, Inverboindy. McLarty. Huntley. Curtain of Skeen, Peter Coulter. Oh, and the A97 also goes down this way here, too. Okay, Calderine, Kirkney, Gartley, Newnorth, Kenneth Mont, Cults. Milton of North, Riney, Cottown, Wheelmont, Boghead Holiday Cottages. That just sounds so fucking sanitary. Kill Drummy. Yeah, fuck Drummy, kill him. Bogston. Or the Lays. Didn't B976. Cockbridge. There's a great name. Okay. We have sort of a general idea. I'm not finding this B979. Killycranky. Curtain of Glen Isla. Escocia. Oh, no sap exactamente. Peter Coulter cooked in a skein. Yeah. We are absolutely in Scotland, but Peterhead. Okay, well, we're someplace between Banff and Dundee. Oh, by Aberdeen. Okay, 4756. Not bad. 24187. Now I was thinking of looking at some videos. I got a few interesting things to just check out here once I find the right window for it. Hogsnout had been asking about the effective filter, and I decided to look and see if anyone had done specific videos on the subject. And here's one. This is the effective filter in the ESL classroom. I'm just going to drop that link in chat. This is an important aspect of the input hypothesis. The effective filter refers to like psychological barriers to language acquisition. And the goal is, of course, to minimize it. So I thought we might check this out and see if it's any good.
Hey everybody, welcome back for another TESOL lesson. Today is just going to be a short lesson, but short but sweet, focusing on language acquisition, the learning environment.
Okay.
Specifically, I'll be talking about what is known as the affective filter, and I'm going to jump right on into that. This is
Yeah.
a hypothesis developed by Krashen, and the affective filter basically determines how much a person's going to learn.
Yeah. I mean, so we're talking about the attitudes toward the language, like how you just feel about the language in general, how motivated you are, whether you're confident in yourself, and how much anxiety. And obviously you want more motivation and self-conscious, less anxiety. And
in a learning situation, whether formal or informal. Now, it's comprised or it's made up of attitudes toward the language. It's made up of the learner's motivation. Maybe it's internal or external. Their self-confidence.
Yeah. And I would say the more you have an internal motivation, I mean, okay, an external motivation is essentially you have to do it. For some reason, it is necessary for you. Whereas an internal motivation is essentially you want to do it for some reason. There's some specific reason other than just obligation that you want to do the thing. I mean, my own sense of it would be that the more of an internal motivation you have,
and anxiety,
the lower the filter is going to be.
And anxiety are very similar when it comes to a language learning setting. But I do want to focus on the attitudes, the confidence of the learner, and the anxiety in this particular lesson. And again, this is just going to be a short lesson, something to kind of get your mind thinking about the environment of your learners. It's one thing to have a wonderful lesson prepared.
Gonna switch over. We're going to look at. Yeah, he's chapterized this. So we've got the low anxiety environment. This is from a teaching perspective. But, I mean, for people who are learning on their own, I think that it will also potentially translate.
Low anxiety environment is one where the hypothetical affective filter, which is, of course, in the mind, again, Krashen hypothesized that there's a kind of filter that either allows input fully in or decreases the input, as in the high affective filter.
Now, in this diagram, what we have here, the rest of it we've kind of already talked about a few times, but the monitor is another aspect of the Krashen input hypothesis complex. And the monitor is essentially stuff you know about the language. Like explicit knowledge of things like grammar and stuff like that act as sort of a monitor of your use of the language. So, like, if you know, you have, like, explicit knowledge of aspects of grammar or something like that, that is your sort of, that is a self-correcting mechanism.
You could say. Affective filter and a low affective filter. I like to again focus on the anxiety. So a low anxiety learning environment or a high anxiety learning environment is going to pretty much affect or have an overall impact on how well that learner is going to receive the learning or the lesson for that time in class.
I'm going to speed this up
let's
to
just
get...
very briefly go through the process, and then I'm going to ask a couple of questions maybe to get you to think.
Yeah, because I mean, what I'm interested in more than anything, we've already kind of talked about this bit and stuff, but I'm interested in what he has to say about, like, creating that low anxiety environment.
Cause or create low anxiety or cause high anxiety. So let's start with the input. Now, if you remember from a previous lesson, input can be pretty much anything. But in our case, it's the classroom, it's the quote-unquote lesson that we're providing. So that's going to be the input. It can be oral.
Okay, we're going to skip a little bit because he's explaining all the stuff in the diagram, and I think probably all the other things, I mean, other than the monitor, which I just explained.
Perhaps the teacher is speaking in a slower rate. The teacher of the class is enjoyable. It can be through text, it can be visual. The idea is there's some kind of language input. Now, if the student's feeling comfortable in your class, if they're maybe not too hungry, or maybe the temperature of the class is enjoyable, maybe the chemistry between the class members is good, the teacher is kind, the teacher is sympathetic, the teacher is nice, perhaps the teacher is speaking in a slower rate of speed, using high-frequency vocabulary that the learners learn.
Yeah, I mean, okay, this stuff kind of translates to a self-teaching sort of environment fairly well. I mean, because what we're talking about is, I mean, part of it is just making yourself generally comfortable. Find a place to, sit or be where you wouldn't mind being for a while. Make sure that you're not like experiencing something distracting, like you're not like currently famished or something like that. That you've got like some water or a snack or something like that. Just general comfort. And then comfort with the material as well, because if you've got something that's going way too fast and is using all kinds of words where you're not getting any of it, then you potentially are going to be more anxious. I mean, unless you're like me and you kind of have just totally reached kind of a language, I think if you do this enough and you kind of shed a lot of the sort of self-consciousness, hey Riveroon, and anxiety around it, and you just sort of accept that you're going to understand stuff and you're going to not understand stuff, and you don't feel, you're not judging yourself about that. But I mean, at a certain point, if you get to that, which I think is actually an ideal mental state, where you are no longer judging yourself about it, where it's just, okay, I am going to enjoy some Finnish input or Italian or Spanish input. I'm going to watch some stuff in Spanish. I'm going to chat to this like person I met online who seems cool in Spanish or whatever, or whatever language. And you're not judging yourself. You're not feeling at all like the world and your personal value is riding on how well you perform in this, and you're able to just sort of sit there and let it wash over you, and without having any, without judging yourself about how well you do, then at that point you can kind of go with just about anything, because if you aren't getting a lot, then you just know you're probably not necessarily using the best thing, and you just try to get, you make the best of it. But if you aren't really there and you do still have a certain amount of like judging of yourself around how well you do in this sort of situation, then it is definitely helpful to have a situation where the input is not going to be too challenging, even though, it has to be on a level that you're not at yet. Just beyond whatever your current level is. But the real key in this, I would have to say, I mean, quite apart from the specific input you chose, quite apart from any of that, from the perspective of the person doing the acquiring or the teachers, to create an environment where there's no judging, where there's no where nobody's like correcting you, where can just sort of take it in the way you need to, like not being not being expected to speak if you're not ready. Yeah, Hogsnout says, it's crazy how poorly foreign language classes in U.S. schools implement these ideas, if they do at all. Like, my French teacher taught me not to listen to French pop music because the singers had bad grammar. Ooh, fuck off. Yeah, I know. I mean, it is really remarkable the degree to which this stuff, a lot of language teaching in the U.S. and other places does not engage with this stuff at all. It seems like it's only in the past few years that this is really, this is really taking off. Though that's my subjective sense of it, and I may be entirely wrong there. I'll have to talk to my nieces. My older niece is definitely taking foreign language classes. I'll have to ask her what kind of methods they use. But it's really, it's really key to be in a mental state where you don't feel like you're going to be judged on how well you're engaging with the input, where you can just engage with it in whatever way is useful to you. Whether that involves, like, talking back at it, even if it's a movie or something like that. Like, when I watch, like, Deadwind, or now I'm watching some other Finnish crime drama now because I ran out of Deadwind. And now I'm starting to feel confident talking back at the screen, as I do when watching things. Yeah, because I grew up with MST3K. But it's all about feeling that you're not judged, that you're not self-conscious, that you're just going to do as well as you do, and understanding that maybe there is better. The best day when the whole school's internet cut off for the whole day, and he told us a story in French, sort of TPRS style, so interactive and fun. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, and that is exactly the thing. That is all about what TPRS is, and the fact that it's actually fun for those participating in it, and that is a thing that lowers the affective filter. That is exactly it, because it's just, you're doing something you actually enjoy through the medium of the language you're trying to acquire. That is like the sweet spot. The more you're actually having fun with it and not feeling, oh shit, I'm getting the subjunctive wrong. Oh, I think I got my fucking noun-verb agreement out of order. Am I going to say this right? The more you're just focusing on the thing, understanding the messages and participating in whatever way you find that you are able to, without any pressure to participate more or less than you are ready to. That is what makes an ideal environment, that level of, like, physical and psychological comfort.
All kinds of combinations here that can help to create a low anxiety learning environment. Now, as you go through the class,
eu creio que normalmente não são apropriadas. Normalmente são inúteis.
Attentive, the learners enjoying themselves, that anxiety or that affective filter is really decreased because there's a low anxiety with those learners or with that particular learner.
Exactly.
So we'll focus on the individual. And as that occurs, very little resistance to the input, and so it goes into what Chomsky calls the language acquisition device, which he theorized is in everybody's brain, and it helps everyone to pretty much understand the structure of the language. It's focusing more
on getting a throat drop with it. All this talking dries me out, and then I end up coughing and stuff.
And then
yeah, the reason it's just called the language acquisition device is that it refers to whatever bits of the brain ultimately turn out to. We know that to perform this function, and we have a pretty good idea of some of them. There's a lot we don't know. Anytime you're talking about the brain and neuroscience, and good, I unmuted the microphone. I mean, there's a huge amount we don't know, and there are a few things we're kind of sure about. And the point of just calling it the language acquisition device is we know that there is some apparatus in the brain that performs this function because this function is being performed.
Work through it and understand the ideas of the code, the technical aspects of the code. Now it goes into this language acquisition device, and then when the learner at some point in the future, not necessarily in your class, but at some point, the learner is able to access that information and use it in what is called the monitor. This is also part of Krashen's monitor hypothesis. And he hypothesized that everyone has, in addition to a LAD, a monitor which helps people construct sentences or statements.
Okay, now that isn't quite my understanding of what Krashen's talking about with the monitor.
And in this case, it's more on speaking. So you might get some learners.
But yeah, I mean, where my understanding and his overlap is that it's about output.
Kind of low fluency speakers. What could be the case is they're actually overusing that monitor, trying to put together the perfect sentence. Now
that book that I was quoting from in the video that I did on all this stuff talks a lot about the monitor and this concept of people who underuse versus overuse the monitor and and how that affects language acquisition. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like just an ideal way to have the class go on. To me, I mean, that sounds brilliant.
There could be any number of reasons. It could be cultural, because they want to do well, or they want to save face. They don't want to be embarrassed by putting together a statement that doesn't make sense. Or it could have something to do with the psychology of it, that they've been traumatized by perhaps a terrible teacher who maybe.
És a dir que la gramàtica és important, però l'adquisició de la gramàtica no ocorreix quan ens corrigeu. No ocorreix quan ens corrigeu, ocorreix quan durant la lectura, per exemple, i moltes altres coses. Però la correcció explícita és inútil.
Overcorrected them at some point in the past, maybe even embarrassed them in class to the point that they're overly cautious. Now the monitor is something that's going to affect fluency, but that's a different lesson at this point. I want to only focus right now on the affective filter and input. So the learner is able.
Okay, I'm going to switch over. Now he's talking about what can cause a high anxiety environment. And I think by synthesizing these things and talking about, because, I mean, this is useful if you're talking about, like, trying to teach this stuff. But it's also useful if you modify it a little bit to use in creating an environment to teach yourself, and the sort of psychological aspect of it. There is a channel on here that I think does some very good stuff on this called I believe it's the Language Confidence Project. Hang on a second, I'm gonna try to find it. Well, I believe it's like the Language Confidence Project or something like that, which I think is quite useful. Yeah, here we go. We've looked at some of her stuff. And there, the LangCon Project podcast. There we are. Okay, I'm just gonna link that, because I really liked what she does in there, and it is all about, like, working on the anxiety and the self-consciousness and stuff like that. Because the thing is, what the affective filter hypothesis is all about is that these things directly affect our ability to acquire language. So dealing with these psychological things is not a thing, it's not a luxury really, it's not something that you do on the side. Having the right, like, psychologically conducive, comfortable, low anxiety environment is crucial to making, to the special sauce that makes language acquisition happen in the first place. So, I mean, and I like what she does there. I think she, and so, okay, so let's talk about what a high anxiety environment looks like.
Erase all of that for now. Let's go back to the high anxiety learning environment. Now let's say, same scenario, you have a lesson prepared.
Oh, well, that's nice when the dog makes it. I remember we did, and I think it was the Polyglot Gathering, we did like a TPRS-based, like, Arabic session. The woman who did it actually has a channel on here, but I don't remember the name. But, and it ended up being a story based in New York involving somebody, like, robbing stuff out of a car, and all sorts of wacky shit happened. And everybody just sort of added to the story.
You have a class of students, let's just say that they're high school students, because they're really the embarrassed group, they're really shy with one another. So already they have some anxiety. Another reason for the anxiety could be that they have had a lot of traumatic experience in previous English classes. They've never taken your class before, because you're a great communicative teacher, but already they have this high affective filter, because they maybe feel some apprehension in any English class, because maybe in the past they've been embarrassed.
I mean, and Giga M was asking about error correction in Catalan a minute ago. And error correction, explicit error correction, particularly when somebody is speaking, is one of the things that really gets that affective filter up. Because it makes people focus on the form of the message rather than the content of it. It makes them, they're worried that they're going to get judged and stuff like that. And if you're worried that you're going to be judged, or you start judging yourself, in this context, that's not good. That's actually going to get in the way of what you're trying to do. The judging yourself over how you're going about it actually makes it less likely that you're going to achieve the result that you're trying to get, which on a certain level can end up in a vicious circle, because then you can end up judging yourself over judging yourself or something like that. So, I mean, there are all sorts of ways that this information can end up being used, and some of them are useful, and some of them, you know, can end up in a vicious cycle that actually does not help. But again, I mean, the psychological aspect of it, that you're enjoying it, that you're comfortable, that you're not feeling judged, that you're not judging yourself, all really come into this in a big way in opening your mind to the input that you're getting and being able to make the greatest use of it. And I mean, that's something, I mean, there are aspects of that you can do just working on the environment, but part of it is also working on yourself and working on just letting it be what it is, and just taking it in and not feeling that you should be able to do more than you are able to, and just allowing yourself to actually just be happy about the things that you are getting. I mean, I think that's a big part of it. Just allowing yourself instead to be just pleasantly surprised when you do manage something, and not like judging yourself when you are when you find you're not managing something that you felt you ought to. Like, I'm reading actually probably one of the most like high level difficult Finnish things I've ever read, which is an introduction to obligations law, because I am trying to get my Finnish to the level where I can translate the sort of stuff that I translate, and so that means like a lot of legal stuff. And so I found some Finnish law books, like introductory law books that I can read to begin getting it. And of course, there's a lot I don't get. There's not a huge amount, but there's a fair bit I don't automatically get. But there's a whole lot that I do get. And so, it's a matter of like not judging myself for the things I'm not getting, but at the same time being like excited about all that I am getting. And that is the sort of psychological mindset you want to be in, ideally, in order to make this work best.
They've gotten the wrong answers. The traditional teacher says wrong, right, pass, fail, black and white. And so maybe your face or your stature reminds them of this teacher. Maybe they're with someone in the class that they don't particularly care for. Maybe, as I mentioned, they just don't like English. So what's going to happen in that situation is that affective filter is actually going to grow or increase, which you can see the effect.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about grammar is the things that actually help people get really good grammar, to acquire good grammar in their target language, have nothing to do with somebody telling them, oh, you got that wrong. It turns out the most effective thing turns out to be pleasure reading in one's target language. That seems to be the big driver of grammar acquisition.
The affective filter increase. More anxiety is going to actually decrease the learning. Now I'm going to go off on a tangent. Sometimes it's not your fault. Maybe the students are hungry. Maybe they had a fight with someone close to them.
Yeah, I mean, these are all, these sort of extrinsic psychological factors are going to play a role. Like if you're having a shitty day, and things have happened that get your anxiety up and you're just sort of feeling judged, or maybe you fucked up something unrelated to your target language, but you're feeling bad about that and stuff like that, and you can just come into this feeling with a level of anxiety unrelated to the task at hand that's going to make it harder. And I mean, it seems to me, if you play your cards right in creating the environment, the internal, like, mental environment, the mind space, and the actual sort of surroundings, physical environment that you're in, that potentially the environment in which you are doing, like, language acquisition related activities can, in fact, help to sort of remediate the shittiness, the surrounding shittiness of your day. Because it's a thing you're doing, and you're actually potentially achieving something in it. Just, little bits, but you are, like, appreciating those little bits, the small wins and stuff like that. And it is a non-sort of judgmental environment. It could potentially allow you to reset a bit.
Maybe something you can control is the temperature of the classroom. Maybe they had a hard time getting to school or the class today. So it could be external.
Yeah.
But whatever the case might be, they have a little anxiety. In other words, they're not quite focused on the lesson. They're not, they have kind of a shield, basically. And we'll call that the affective filter.
Yeah,
so you
all
have
of
this
this stuff.
wonderful lesson, great visual aids. It might even be a little interesting for them. It might be very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, you want it to be inherently interesting. I mean, that can come from the fact that you just find the language interesting, and that, you're just pumped about that. or it can come from the fact that what you're doing with the language is something that is inherently interesting to you. I mean, the more that it is enjoyable and interesting and in a sort of a non-judgmental kind of environment that's like no judgment of you, no judgment by you, of you, and stuff like that, probably the better it all is going to be for you.
However, those who might have a high anxiety or a high affective filter could very well be missing the whole idea of your lesson. So
Yeah.
what happens is very little is going to get in to the lad. Very little is going to be accessed when the time comes that they need information from that particular lesson, because it's really not accessible.
See, it seems to me you can kind of leave the monitor out for the moment with this. The monitor, the monitor comes into it when it comes into it. But right now, like when we talk, the way Krashen formulates, and I think it makes a lot of sense, what we're talking about really is this part of the diagram on the left, the input, the effective filter. That is actually the best quality this video offers, unfortunately. And then the lab, the language acquisition device. The rest of this stuff is kind of a separate track. Okay. Wait a second. Okay, I don't understand the structure of this lecture. Because he starts out with low anxiety learning environment, then he goes to high anxiety learning environment, and then we're back to low anxiety learning environment again. So I don't quite understand what's going on there, but we're going to just skip over because I think we have an idea. I don't think it's actually hard for most of us in this world we're living in to conceive of things that are anxiety provoking. I think we all understand the things that can increase our anxiety.
I'd like to ask the question, and of course I can't hear you, but you're very welcome to leave comments. What teacher behaviors are going to help create a low anxiety?
He's putting this to class discussion.
Now I did mention previously, or earlier, not previously, but earlier, I did mention a few things. Perhaps the teacher is smiling. Perhaps the teacher is kind. Teacher is sympathetic. The teacher knows how to kind of break up the ice between the learners.
Yeah.
The lesson is interesting. The lesson is relevant. It's comprehensible. And the learners have a good feeling about English because they've been with you in this kind of environment for a long time now.
And of course, when we're doing this on our own, one of the things that actually does complicate things is that we are often the ones choosing the input, which can lead to anxiety around, anxiety and like self-judgment and negative self-talk around our choice of thing to use as input or something like that, and that also is unhelpful. Yeah, so I mean, it's just a way, you just have to kind of get a little bit zen about it and sort of suspend all judgment of yourself in this context, everything to do with that, the language acquisition. The more you can just sort of roll with it, and it's like, if it's not working, you do something else, and avoid judging yourself, avoid feeling anxious, avoid feeling kind of, that you're not going to perform the way you want to.
Behaviors that could help create a low anxiety.
And just let it be what it is.
Maybe you can think of some others. I've only given general ideas, but the idea is think about how you can make your environment low anxiety. Because the idea, guys, is no matter how wonderful your input is, if this affective filter is high,
yeah,
not much is going to get in. The student basically is not paying attention or is not focusing on your lesson.
I wouldn't even say that. They may be paying attention. They may be focusing. but this other stuff is preventing it from getting through in the way that it needs to. So they may be, you know, you or, you know, they if you're teaching, or you if you're like teaching yourself, may actually be concentrating really fucking hard. But it's but nothing's getting in because you're like feeling like, okay, but what if I mess this up, and what if I, you know, and I feel like I chose the wrong thing, damn it, I'm really bad at choosing these things, and all that sort of negative self-talk and self-judgment and self-consciousness and stuff like that essentially is standing between you and the effect that you're trying to have with the input and stuff like that. So you may be concentrating really hard, like but it's just not getting there because you've got all this other stuff going on in your head.
The eyes are there. We have an expression in among teachers, right? Physically present but mentally absent. So maybe their mind is thinking about something else. You've got to get their mind on the lesson. You've got to put them at ease and get that anxiety down, or that affective filter lowered. So again, what teacher behaviors help to create a low anxiety learning environment? I would challenge you to think of those and even write them down.
Oh, sorry for your loss.
Or observe your classes. What works, what doesn't work. Now, on the other side of the spectrum, what teacher behaviors could cause a high anxiety learning? One could very well...
Okay, so he's just going through and asking people this stuff, and we don't get to hear what they say. Yeah, any kind of nitpicking and stuff like that, nitpicking yourself, nitpicking others, is going to actually get in the way of language acquisition. Now, I'm kind of curious about this Luca Lampariello video, why most learners get stuck at B2 and how to fix it. B2 is like high intermediate. This is an interview he did with somebody on...
Let's see
with somebody called...
This is working.
David,
can you hear me?
David Allen Martin or Lingua Thor. I'm going to drop this link in chat.
I hear you perfectly. Can you hear me?
Oh, incidentally, I have started just accidentally a new series of like occasional comics I'm drawing, and I'm just going to link you to that in chat as well. It just occurred to me, so there. A bit of absurdism.
I can hear you fine and dandy. So we're ready to
Fine and dandy like sugar candy.
Like sugar
Sure
candy. That's exactly right. So first of all, we want to hear from you guys. If you can actually hear us, this is a technical test just to see that we're not going to spend 2 hours talking notes. Now, David is going to show us, he's going to give us a wonderful presentation, and it's going to be kind of interactive, meaning that he's going to go slide by slide, and then I'm going to chime in, I'm going to ask him a few questions, and then we're going to have a Q&A session with you guys. So a couple of important...
Okay, I'm going to skip over some stuff to try to get to the heart of this.
Exactly, we hit it off like this. So he's the man,
Yeah.
and we're going to start. David, you can share your slides, but I have to give you permission. Yeah, Gabino says learn vocabulary. Yes, that and more. Then someone said YouTube user said that was a joke, lads.
Yeah, I actually figured as much.
Okay, so
okay, so I will go ahead and share my screen then. Here.
Okay, remember guys, take notes. I'm going to ask a few questions to David while he presents slide by slide, because we want to delve into information, that's fine, but I think it's really cool also to delve into our personal stories as people, because there's always a person behind the polyglot. Yeah, so
Luke is the consummate coach, letting people know how to consume
There's no okay. That I was worried for a second. So there's always a person behind. I didn't think there was any behind me.
this content. Oh, that was actually some nice alliteration. There's 4 different K sounds in that.
yes, it seems
Okay.
like everything is working. Okay, so
It does
Yeah.
seem to be working. Hello, Anika.
Anika says, "I'm excited. You better be, Anika. This is gonna be great. You're gonna love it."
Undoubtedly. Okay, great. So, welcome everyone to our live once again. And this is
Neat
all
graphics.
about helping you
I like the
guys
graphic
to
design
move
here.
from the B2 plateau to
B2, maybe he's going to explain it, but the idea is this is the European Common Framework, and B2 is like high intermediate.
to C1. And the reason why this is so important to Luca and myself is not only because he and I have both done it multiple times, but because as coaches, we have experienced time and again that students have difficulty moving to the C1 level. And it's not because they're not capable, but rather because they simply don't know how to go about doing that. And so I'd like to show you how I go about doing that, how I do that for myself, how I do it with my students. And Luca has a lot to say from his great experience as a learner and as a teacher, as well. And as Luca already said, this is going to be interactive, so don't worry, I'm not just going to drone on for half an hour, rather we're going to make it a little more interactive for you guys, okay? Okay, so let's jump into the thick of it.
Okay.
And there we are. Okay, so, great. So first thing we need to do in order to move from a B2 to a C1 is to understand what the difference is between a B2 and a C1. Just real quick, Luca, can you actually, that's why, because I'm not actually in full screen here. There we go.
Okay, this is good. We're going to get some very concrete kind of definitions of the concept of B2 and C1 for anyone who is not familiar with this whole framework.
Great. So what is the biggest difference between a B2 and a C1? Well, B2 is what I like to call survival and function. So it's a little bit more than just barely surviving, right? You're not just scraping by. You're capable of getting through pretty much every everyday situation that you might encounter. You have the vocabulary in order to be able to express yourself in most situations. You most certainly, will not likely will not pass for a native, but you can get by. You can express your opinions. You're understood. You're competent. Let's just say.
Yeah. So essentially, I mean, this is mostly described in terms of production, but essentially you can kind of understand what comes at you, and you can more or less make yourself understood, but it's not Flash.
Is quite a different level. At a C1 level, you can engage in nuanced discussions, right? You can navigate, as I like to say, and shape situations. So you can start to, for example, you'll start to be able to make plays on words, make jokes, similar to how a native speaker might do that.
I've always felt that playing with language is an underrated aspect of like language education, of puns and jokes and play on words and all that sort of thing. I think like language teachers should focus more on bringing that in early, because that's one of those things that you can have fun with the language, and it is really also kind of the mark of somebody who has really gotten somewhere in acquiring it, if they're able to just spontaneously do it and notice these sorts of, and make jokes in the language that actually land.
Be able to make allusions to things, right? You'll be able to use the language with a greater deal of finesse, let's say, than you otherwise would be able to do at a B2 level. So you're really, really quite proactive and integrated at this level. And then move on from there. Okay. So
Okay, I'm just gonna skip because we've explained what the difference between the levels are. But I'm interested in what he has to say about this situation of being stuck. Not suck, stuck. And not being suck, being stuck. It may feel suck.
Anything? Okay, great. Okay. So, these are the common traps that people get into, they get stuck in at the B2 level. The first one is...
I mean, a lot of this seems to actually, I'm just glancing over this list, it seems to fit in with, like, sort of the comfort zone. You've reached, you've sort of reached a point where you're kind of comfortable with it, and you can... you feel, and you just sort of don't go beyond it, seems to be the idea here.
Passive consumption. So, you can get to the point, and of course it's really quite an accomplishment when you get to the point where you can watch movies and TV and you understand well nigh everything that it is.
That is
hearing, right? So if you can watch,
pretty huge thing.
A lot of my students who I teach English to, they love watching Friends, but for anybody who's ever watched Friends before, they speak super fast, right? So when you get...
Who's he talking? Who's he teaching English to that they like watching? Like, does he like drive to a class in a specially retrofitted DeLorean?
To the point where you can...
Who the fuck's still watching Friends?
Everything that they're saying at speed, you're getting all the jokes, there's lots of plays on words, right? That's a really, really good feeling. But does that mean that you will actually come to talk like these actors, like the characters in the show? No.
I mean, you might.
Absolutely not. You have to go out of your way to get there. So just because you are passively understanding what it is that you're consuming in terms of the content, it doesn't mean that you'll actually be able to utilize the language like that which you are hearing. Okay? So the next one, just stop me if you want to chime in at all. Okay, Luca? Or we can do it at the end. Okay, the next one would be perfectionism. Right? And
and perfectionism actually gets into what we were just talking about with the affective filter and the monitor. Because the monitor is, in Krashen's parlance, the aspect of the sort of super ego of the language acquisition process. It's your explicit knowledge of, like, how the thing works that is potentially your internal self-criticism. And it is also very much an affective... It potentially can contribute heavily to the affective filter if it gets to the point where you're a perfectionist about stuff. Because then you're going to be focusing more on the form than the message, and it's going to impede your ability... Oh, I'm glad the cap was on firmly because I accidentally just kicked my water bottle over. So, I mean, with you're getting into affective filter territory again, because you have this sort of comfort zone, and perfectionism kicks in when you try to go beyond it to make you anxious about doing so. So, I mean, this works out really well, because we're just talking about the filter, and here we're talking about a practical application of where the filter can get in your way.
I know that I have definitely, gotten into this trap before. You want to be perfect, you don't want to make any mistakes, you don't want to sound stupid, it's the worst possible thing you can do.
Yeah.
But the best thing that you can do is
not
make
give a
as
fuck.
Many mistakes as possible, as fast as possible, right? We like to call this fail fast, right? Because when you fail, and of course I talked about a big fail of mine in Spanish at the end of our last video where I made a fool of myself by saying the wrong word my first year living in Spain, but I never...
now I want to know what word he said.
Right? And it's a great story to tell, and it's
tell it, damn it!
The end of the world. People will always remember you for how you made them feel rather than the mistakes you made, right?
Well, I don't know. There are probably some really memorable ones that you will probably hear about for, like, the rest of your life. Hopefully in sort of a benign context.
So if you go out of your way to communicate with somebody, to connect with somebody on a human level, they're not going to care about the mistakes that you make, right? So don't be so
unless it's a really, really good one.
And of course now with AI and being able to talk to AI around the clock, something that's infinitely patient and zero judgmental, this has become.
Yeah, of course it's zero judgmental and infinitely patient because there is no mind behind it. It is just recycling shit that it's seen elsewhere.
As long as you know how to go about communicating with the AI. The next one would be vocabulary recycling, so just using all the same words all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's all very much a comfort zone thing.
Saying something is good, right, rather than saying excellent, wonderful, spectacular, right? In German, instead of gut, hervorragend, ausgezeichnet,
Prima.
Prima. There's so many other words you can use.
Kolossal.
In German, the big one is just saying machen for everything. Just, right, instead of erlebt, whatever. There's so many different synonyms that you can use depending on the context.
Erledigen, vollziehen, durchführen,
collocations, right? Common
aufziehen.
collocations, so generally combinations of words, of verbs and nouns. And then make sure always to learn the correct preposition. Because that's a big one. But it's not the end of the world if you don't remember the correct one, right?
Yes.
I distinctly remember listening to Italiano Automatico with Alberto. I'm sure of course you know him. You did a video with him. I distinctly remember learning the expression "non vedo l'ora di" and then whatever, right? Di fare qualcosa or whatever.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, awesome! Another collocation, another set phrase that I can add to my inventory, right? So these kinds of things that you should constantly be thinking about mining and adding to your repertoire. And then the last one is do not avoid authentic complexity. And the biggest reason why people do that is because they don't understand, and that's one of the main reasons why.
And here we go again with the affective filter, because if you are not feeling judged by yourself or others, then if you don't understand, if you aren't getting any, then, at the most, it sounds like you probably need to find some different, content to engage with, some different input to engage with, whatever it is. So who gives a fuck? You just learned a thing. You learned what material perhaps not to be using yet. But if you have that anxiety around feeling that you need to be able to comprehend and engage with this particular material, and feeling bad about yourself if you don't, then you're going to stay away from. Then you're going to be very nervous about what material you select. But if you just kind of get to a sort of a degaff space where, sometimes you're gonna fuck up, and sometimes you're not gonna understand everything, and that's just a thing that happens, and it's part of it. And then there will times when you get it right and you do understand everything. And you just sort of steer towards the things that are increasing the number of experiences of that, while at the same time expanding the areas in which you are able to just do that, comprehend things. Then you're doing well. But I mean, I guess this plateau that he's talking about is where people sort of stick to only stuff that includes I, rather than I plus 1, as Crashin puts it. So I plus 1, remember, is the level just beyond what you've already got. And if you want to keep acquiring, you've got to always be seeking out stuff that is just beyond where you already are. It includes at least some stuff that you don't already have. But in a way where context and other things allow you to understand it. So, but if you're sticking to only things that you've already got, then of course you're not going to advance.
I designed T3, and then with the help of my brothers, we turned it into an app so that people could take any text at any level, doesn't need to be C3 level, and you can import it into T3 and instantly get translations at word and sentence level so you understand everything, even if you're a complete beginner.
I'm sharing the link here. We have an affiliate with David, and just in case you want to check, I hope I'm sharing.
Let me just make sure.
here. This is the affiliate link.
That
to
you
link
have
on
the link for that in chat, because this is a long video. This is 2 hours. We're not going to get to finish it today, but it looks interesting. It definitely looks interesting. But we're running out of time right now. I wanted to just mention, like, one of the things about active processing, he talks about the active processing there. Netflix binges without it. But active processing can sometimes happen just unexpectedly. You just find yourself, you can really kind of tell that you've got possibly really good materials that you're working with if you find yourself, like, thinking about it in your target language afterwards. Like, if you're actually, because that is a sign that you're digesting it. That doesn't mean that you've got bad materials if you don't find yourself doing that, because it takes time to get to the point where you've got those structures and stuff like that. But you can be fairly certain you're hitting a sweet spot if you actually find yourself actively using the language even inside your head afterwards, as it means that things are integrating. And with that, let me just thank you for joining in. It's always great to see you. I hope you enjoyed the stream, and it's time for me to start thinking about dinner thoughts and stuff like that. But I will be back at 4:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time this coming Friday. And I hope to see you all then. And in the meantime, keep up these suggestions. The effective filter thing, that was Hogsnout, suggested that we talk more about that in the suggestions channel on the Discord. And, I think that's great. Because, if there are specific topics you're interested in having, talking about on here related to, like, language stuff, then that's great. Just, keep them coming. This was a good idea. Hogsnout. Because it really fit into this other thing that I was looking at. I wasn't even expecting it to. So, have a good evening, and I will see you next week.